beautiful. Oh. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So glad you could join us. I'm not sure if it's coming through on the screen. It doesn't look it. We do have some firemen down the street. I think everything's okay. But just... Oh, and then you saw who our guests are going to be. We're going to be talking about Comic-Con a little bit later on during the program. But I apologize if you hear any noises in the background. So we are going to talk about Biden's speech yesterday. We're going to talk about the media. Well, we'll talk about it all. But let's go first to the comments from viewers after yesterday's program, shall we? Morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Oh, there they go. Some of them. Morning, Frank. Even Biden can't show up for his scheduled announcement. No wonder our country is in the state it currently is. Can't wait for President Trump to take over. Yeah, he was, how long? He was probably a good 10, 15 minutes late to his scheduled speech yesterday. That is a good point. Another comment from a different viewer. Biden was very coherent, though his claims about the economy and such were, let's say, empty. Yeah, the quote-unquote facts that he used were... a little suspect, but let me ask, and this is just my opinion. You can completely disagree, but I'd love to hear from you either way. Did he seem to be in a kind of a jovial mood for this press conference? Am I reading too much into it because of my theory that he sort of wanted Trump to win so that the elites have the magnifying glass on them for kicking him out? Because that is happening. You probably saw Nancy Pelosi and Donna Brazile, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, kind of getting into, we don't know what was said, mind you, but getting into a heated discussion. There could be a question, because Donna Brazile didn't want Biden ousted. So he just seemed in more of a happy mood, doing a lot of the whisper thing, though. Boy, that makes me uncomfortable. But did seem to be in a better mood than you'd expect due to the nature of the speech. But continuing, another comment from a viewer. I watched Biden's address after Trump's win, and he said that we lost this battle. That was wrong for him to make such a statement of division. That isn't very uniting to a country. On the contrary, he's still keeping the battle against half the population going. Yeah, it's just like with Harris's speech when she conceded. The language being used, I would tend to agree, not necessarily helpful to the cause of unifying and uniting the country, but we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Last comment from a viewer from before this morning's broadcast. Gotta love KJP storming off when pressed on questions of peaceful transition. She was not happy with that question, was she? No, we are going to talk about that as well. If you're not familiar with what we're talking about, Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, relatively storming off when asked a question about peaceful transition. That's coming up in a little bit. As of right now, the numbers in the House, 200 Democrats. They have now flipped 5 seats to 212 Republicans who have now flipped 6 seats. The magic number, 218. Big news coming out yesterday that the Associated Press called the Pennsylvania Senate for Republican challenger Dave McCormick. Now, the Associated Press has called it. If you look at the numbers, it does not look as if Bob Casey could make a comeback, so they felt comfortable calling it. But Casey has not conceded, and there will be, it sounds like, a recount, an automatic recount, though Senator Bob Casey could stop the recount, though he is unlikely to do that. Pennsylvania law requires the Secretary of the Commonwealth to order all county board of elections to conduct a recount if one of the candidates, quote, was defeated by 0.5% or less of the votes cast for the office. McCormick leads Casey by over 34,000 votes. a margin of 0.05 percentage points. The decision desk has not yet called the race for McCormick at CNN. But the Associated Press did call the race, and Bob Casey has refused to concede that he lost. As the Pennsylvania Secretary of State said this afternoon, there are tens of thousands of ballots across the Commonwealth still to be counted, which includes provisional ballots, military and overseas ballots, and mail ballots. Campaign spokesman Maddie McDaniel said, the race is within half a point and cannot be called while the votes of thousands of Pennsylvanians are still being counted. But looks to be in the right direction. So there you are. There's an update, some breaking news updates. Also breaking news coming in yesterday afternoon, evening. Trump making history yet again, not just from his historic win, but naming the first female as a White House chief of staff with his selection of Susie Wiles. Now, let's be honest. How many people really knew a lot about Susie Wiles? People are learning kind of on the fly. She was the campaign co-chair. She's going to be White House chief of staff, the first woman picked for the coveted and powerful role. Wiles, nicknamed the Ice Maiden, is widely credited as being one of the chief architects of Trump's victorious presidential campaign. Susie Wiles just helped me achieve one of the greatest political victories in American history and was an integral part of both my 2016 and 2020 successful campaigns, Trump said in a statement. Wiles, who is 67, managed the Trump-Vance campaign along senior advisor Chris LaCivita. A behind-the-scenes operator, she kept a very low profile throughout the soon-to-be 47th president's third White House bid. Yes, when he called her up on stage during the victory speech, I believe for many that was the first time seeing her. She even declined the opportunity to speak at the victory speech. Him saying at the time, Donald Trump at the time, saying, the job you did, come here, Susie. Susie likes to stay sort of in the back. Let me tell you, the Ice Maiden. We call her the Ice Maiden. Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background. So the daughter of legendary NFL player and broadcaster Pat Summerall, Wiles is widely regarded as a political force to be reckoned with, having worked as an assistant for the late Representative Jack Kemp and serving as a campaign scheduler during former President Ronald Reagan's 1980 presidential bid. She became known as a top GOP strategist after helping Rick Scott, now Florida's junior senator, win the Sunshine State's governorship back in 2010. As Representative Jared Moskowitz, a Democrat from Florida, posted, if you don't know her, you soon will. But Susie Wiles will go down as one of the greatest campaign strategists. To the Democrats' determinant, she has been a part of all winning campaigns in Florida. So that's exciting news. Somewhat breaking news, if you had not heard it by now. Susie Wiles, the Ice Maiden, will be the first female White House chief of staff for President-elect Donald J. Trump. Also, speaking of that, I know the media, and we're going to go quick this morning because we've got a lot to cover, but the media is saying battles from the Mar-a-Lago patio. How Trump's staffing has already turned into a war, as if CNN's Caitlin Collins has an inside look at that. Almost immediately after it became clear that Donald Trump was on his way to re-election, phones began pinging in the president-elect's orbit, and the conversation at several of the dining room tables at Mar-a-Lago turned to who would staff a second Trump term. Onlookers spotted Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Donald Trump Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Tom Barrack, and Trump's transition co-chairs, Howard Lutnick and Linda McMahon, milling around the club early Wednesday. Trump spent part of the day going through names that had been previously lined up by Lutnick in the months before the election. So, one name that's being thrown around, which I think is very exciting, one of his most vocal supporters and someone that was actually, for a while, considered a front runner, or at least in the top 5 of being the VP pick, and that's Elise Stefanik. She tops a list of people that the Trump transition team is considering for UN ambassador. Stefanik has reportedly attacked the United Nations over accusations that the world body is anti-Semitic. Last month, she called for a complete reassessment of U.S. funding of the United Nations in response to efforts by the Palestinian Authority to expel Israel from the United Nations as war raged in the Middle East. Now, this is coming from Politico, so it's, as you can tell by the wording, a little slanted and trying to scare you because they're not learning their lesson. The media has not learned their lesson. We have numerous examples of that this morning. and what it all really means for the future of media in general. Not understanding why the people not only elected Donald Trump through the Electoral College, the way to do it. That's how you get elected, of course, even though some are still, Rosie O'Donnell still calling for the end of the Electoral College, even though Trump winning the popular vote. And how did they word it at CNN? Trump believes he has a mandate. I think the American people, the country knows that he has a mandate. It's not believes. Interesting wording, but exciting news. The Elise Stefanik being considered for the United Nations ambassador. What is your thoughts on that as we just get warmed up here on Frankly Speaking? We have so much to cover. I'm asking you to stay with us as we go to our first break, because we'll be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Stock up for fall and save at GCP Discount Liquors and Wines. On 1.75-liter Grey Goose vodka, normally $42.99, on sale for $38.99. Save even more with $5 mail-in rebate. Your final cost $33.99. A 750-milliliter Wagner Dry Riesling, Semi-Dry Riesling, and Riesling Select, normally $12.99, now on sale for $10.99 a bottle. GCP Discount Liquors and Wines in Horseheads, the best in service, selection, and price.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, it's haunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making.
The website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Some comments from viewers. Now that Republicans are back in charge, it is factual that Republicans hate being in charge. They prefer saying that they wish they could do something. Which assigned positions will intentionally undermine Trump? It will happen. A couple points to dissect here. I do not disagree with your statement, but I believe that's more of a situation in the House and the Senate to an extent where they like being in the minority, and maybe that's what you're referencing, but being in the minority because it's a lot easier to go out to your constituents and say, boy, we tried, what could we do? A prime example of that is Paul Ryan bad-mouthing Obamacare ad nauseum, and then when Trump got in office back in 2016, we realized they had no plan ready to replace it. So yes, I think I would agree with your statement there. It's not all Republicans by any means, but there are some that get so used to being in the minority, or in this case in the House, the majority, but a very fighting majority, a slim majority, but also a lot of turning on each other. So that will be an interesting point, and I don't disagree with your assessment there. Also, there will be people in there to undermine Trump, unfortunately. I think his eyes are wide open at this point, realizing that. I think that's why they've put together really a great transition team. I think there'll be much more. I know Don Jr. spoke to this yesterday, and I can't remember what program it was on. Speaking, and the media loves to use this term, but pledge loyalty to Trump. Not pledge loyalty, just on the same page as Trump. That's really where we need to be, to realize, as Don Jr. said, not put someone in there that thinks they're smarter than the guy at the helm, that thinks that they know better than the man that was elected by the voters of the United States. So I would tend to agree that it will happen at some point, but I hope that you are wrong and that I am wrong. Next up, when was the last time you saw Biden smile? Think about it. Did he intentionally do what he did to sabotage Harris? Some believe so. That's what I'm saying. He seemed in such a good mood during his speech yesterday, which was not a speech that you should necessarily be in a good mood. Look at him welcome his granddaughter in the front of the audience, and wave to his staff and blow kisses. Yeah, I found it very strange. Yes, a lot of people do believe that he put Harris, kind of endorsed Harris right away, saying essentially that's my last power move. See if you can win with her. Again, to my point that if Harris doesn't win, and she didn't, then he can at least, in his mind, because very ego-based person, he can always say to the elites, I told you so. You got rid of me when I'm the only one that could prove that I could beat Donald Trump. Now, the media is trying to spin it and blame him for not getting out early enough, but that drives you crazy when you say, wait a minute, the same people saying Biden didn't get out early enough were propping him up, trying to tell you, gaslight you that no, he's healthy. You can't talk about his health. He's the president of the United States. He's doing great. So it's disingenuous for them to now say he didn't get out early enough. Yes, and that's also an insult on Harris, because what they're saying is there should have been a primary. Because if you ever notice, they'll do a little disclaimer. Not to say Harris wouldn't have won the primary, but yeah. So listen, this was all said. We brought it up on the program that Harris was not a good candidate. They told us she wasn't a good candidate before they gave her the nod, before they handed it to her. They told us that they wanted to get rid of her because she wasn't popular and put somebody in that was more popular to maybe boost up Biden before he dropped out. So the idea that you didn't know and that we didn't know is nonsense. And so to this viewer's point, was this kind of Biden's last? You knew better, elites. The elites that have, in his mind, have always underestimated him. You knew better once again, and you were wrong. Something to be said there. Finally, last comment here. I wonder if Mark Cuban is choking while he heard she is the chief of staff. Yes, there's a lot of people. Well, a lot of people don't know. The big thing is going to be that her nickname's Ice Maiden. That's going to scare a lot of people that know very little about her. She's a powerful person, and I think it's an exciting pick. Hey, by the way, think of the timing on this. This is a topic, and getting a little off topic, but still staying on in a way. New York City, think of the timing. New York City is to end the controversial program that supplied migrants with prepaid debit cards. The pilot program distributed the preloaded MasterCards to asylum seekers at hotels turned shelters, with a family of 4 receiving about $350 a week to cover the cost of groceries and baby supplies. The city hired New Jersey-based, New York City hired a New Jersey-based tech startup in a $53 million one-year emergency contract that drew backlash. And if you recall at the time when this was first reported, people that I knew from out of state, that I went to college with, texted me and going, are you guys, because they all think New York is just New York City and the whole place. Are you guys really giving debit cards to asylum seekers, to migrants? I don't get a debit card of $350 a week. And I said, well, and I explained a little bit of the difference, but I said, yeah, I agreed. It's an outrage. If you were a household size of 8, that's a large family, but let's say you cross the border and there's 8 of you in a hotel in New York City, you received a $2,203 a week debit card. All right. Hey, by the way, did you see that, was it Barnard? I always have trouble with that name. Their students, their classes were canceled there and at Columbia because of the stress after the election. Professors at two prestigious New York universities gave fragile students rattled by Tuesday election results an excuse to skip class for the rest of the week. But as the Jewish community members at those universities had to say, you know, it's very telling that students got a day off for that, or a week off, essentially, but not after October 7th. Columbia has a serious problem with neutrality. For an institution that claims to care so much about equality and equity, their empathy clearly doesn't apply to the Jews, student Elena Golden told the New York Post. I'm sure that if Harris won, the university would not have canceled classes. That is crystal clear. Now, keep in mind, and I know people say, oh, it's just college and it's young people that can't handle the stress. Where was it? Was it Georgetown? Where on election day they offered a room where you could just get away from it all with coloring books, and I'm not making this up, cookies and hot cocoa and those type of things. These are supposed to be the leaders, the future leaders of the world. And you can laugh at it, but it's not laughable because they will graduate and they will move on. So this is when the real world unfortunately coddles them when they get out. People disagreed with me years ago when I started saying this, and then we started to hear about the woke policies in the business world, woke policies coming from specifically government entities. So these college students would come out, work in government, and again be coddled. So anyway, lefty professors at Barnard and Columbia, two elite schools that became epicenters for disruptive and at times violent and destructive anti-Israel protests over the past week, sent warm and fuzzy emails to students encouraging them to take it easy on Wednesday. The messages were peppered with language suggesting their students had just been through a tragedy in the wake of Donald Trump's historic defeat. Just ask yourself the question, just like that person said. If Harris won, do you think kids could skip class? This is what it says. I hope you are all taking care. I recognize that processing the results of a national election can be heavy, and having space to breathe and go a bit slower is vital, wrote one professor. In her missive announcing class would be cut short, she offered to remain in the room for anyone who wants to use it as a workspace or a space to reflect with others. I'm not going to read all these comments, but it also happened at Harvard. Harvard professors canceled classes as students feel blue after Trump win. This is coming from the Crimson directly. Students awoke to a somber campus following Donald Trump's re-election to the presidency early Wednesday morning. Quote, my heart dropped a little bit, one student said. I still had some hope that she was going to win by a small amount, and then I woke up this morning, and that's not what happened, said one student. I probably cried for like an hour. On election night, students gathered at viewing parties hosted by friends, House tutors, the Institute of Politics, and the Harvard Republican Club to watch results roll in. The next morning, they woke up to a somber campus. I don't want to go through all the quotes of the students. But canceling, again, you asked the question just to highlight more of what we're dealing with when we talk about elite universities and colleges in general, what we're dealing with when it comes to the bias, because it goes without saying, if Harris had won, classes would still be ongoing. Also, it's not just on college campuses. The Guardian, the newspaper out of the United Kingdom, they offered therapy to staff after the devastating Trump election wins. How could you even suggest some type of impartiality or a non-bias if you're offering therapy to staff after, quote, devastating Trump election win? We are going to talk more about the media's role in all of this and whether or not they're reflecting. We also have heard from some pretty prominent Democrats in their mind of what went wrong. It's pretty scathing. It's pretty soul-searching, if you will. So we're going to talk about that as well. But coming up next, a little bit about Joe Biden's address to the nation. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
When you think boots, think
Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel toe boots, Met Guard boots, soft toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location. Hesselson's at Meyer Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keene Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped. I had a gun and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
Football's newest show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. A busy morning on the street. As we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, comments from viewers. Don't Democrats always blame everyone else other than themselves? Some have come to terms. The Democrat Party is not for the working man any longer. And we heard that from Bernie Sanders yesterday. But he got some pushback from the DNC chair, I think it was, on his statement saying that Biden was the most pro-worker president ever, or something to that extent. But yeah, I have examples of that. There are a lot that are blaming others as you look at it. I think some really, really questionable, borderline racist type language by Joe Scarborough and others, and how they're addressing the black and Latino vote. Really, if at the very least, cringy what they're saying. It's not just Joe Scarborough, and I have some more examples. Joe Scarborough was on Wednesday morning. That's a little bit of old news, but we talked about it on yesterday's show. I have examples from yesterday as well. It really makes you uncomfortable reading some of what's being said, and that's the blame game, as you said. That's them blaming everybody but themselves. I also think they'll say, well, the economic numbers, though on paper they're great, they're really good. The economy's booming, but people were struggling to pay groceries, and that's what it is. It was more than that. I'm not downplaying that at all. That was a big factor in it too. Probably the number one factor. But there are other factors. You can't just do that. Well, it was the economy. Well, you got to look at your candidate. You've got to look at the message. You've got to look at the lack of policy. There's more than just one issue that brought people to the polls, and we're going to talk about that. So what did you think about grinning Joe Biden addressing Trump's landslide win? Saying, quote, "We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, to see each other not as adversaries." This coming off of comments by Harris calling Trump fascist, and, well, Biden himself calling Trump supporters garbage. But I just thought his attitude did not fit the message. And I guess we can all speculate why that was, why he was in such a jovial mood and seemed to be in such a good mood when it started for a speech that he should not want to make. I again, call me conspiratorial, call me whatever you want. I still think part of it is Joe Biden's ego loves the fact that Nancy Pelosi is on the front page of the New York Post, for instance, this morning crying, and that you see the confrontation between her and Donna Brazile. I think there's something there that Biden, as someone who's always been driven by ego, him and his family, can now say, see, we told them. We told you so. You should have stuck with me. They could have kept, let's be honest, they could have kept and propped him up as they had for the last 3.5 years. That one bad debate performance really did not have to end his presidency, but Nancy Pelosi chose it. Chuck Schumer chose it. Obama chose it. And so the theory goes that Biden said, all right, then good luck winning with Harris, and came out and fully endorsed Harris to stop some type of early primary or truncated primary. And because it was reported at the time that Obama really wanted Mark Kelly. And remember, if you recall, Obama didn't endorse Harris right away. He was still working behind the scenes to get some type of primary situation going, or maybe opt for somebody else. But Biden made that last power move against the Democrat elites. Not that he's not a Democrat elite, but that different set of Democrat elites, the ones that he feels have always undermined him, have always underestimated him. So that was his last power move. I find that to be such a fascinating story that I'm sure there'll be books written about it, but he seemed to be in a good mood. He almost seemed as good a mood on Thursday as Trump supporters were on Thursday. Do you agree or disagree? Love to hear from you. So Karine Jean-Pierre, who we heard from a viewer early, mentioning the press, what would you call it? I guess, yeah. It wasn't really, I guess it was a press conference. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre became testy after Fox News senior White House correspondent Heinrich, the last name's Heinrich, questioned her about a change in President Biden's rhetoric before and after the election. In brief remarks, Biden said he congratulated Trump on his victory and assured that his entire administration would work to, quote, ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. He emphasized unity and spoke about political campaigns as a contest of competing visions that the country chooses between. Heinrich, however, recalled Biden's history of warning that Trump and his supporters are threats to American democracy. Quote, as you mentioned, this administration messaged to millions of Americans that they're going to wake up the day after the election, if Trump won, and have their rights stripped away, that democracy would crumble. And the president said today, we're going to be okay. So how do you square that? He asked Jean-Pierre. She asked, okay. I can square that, Jean-Pierre said. I'm going to square that in a way that hopefully makes sense, because I've been answering this question multiple times. The American people made the decision. There was an election 2 nights ago. There was. And it was a free and fair election, and we respect the election process. We do. And Americans spoke. And so the job of the president is to make sure we respect that. The job of the president is to make sure that we have a peaceful transfer of power. That is what the American people deserve. She later added that Biden had played his part in the peaceful transfer of power because the president wants to lead by example. It's not complicated. It really isn't. And that's important. Well, Heinrich pressed Jean-Pierre, asking what the message is to people who are fearful based on Biden's previous messaging. Jean-Pierre did not like that. Well, now you're just twisting everything around, and that's really unfair. No, it is. It's unfair because I've been standing here trying to be very respectful to what happened the last 2 nights ago, being respectful. I've been standing here saying that we respect the decision the American people have made. I've been standing here and saying that the president's going to put the American people first. I've been standing here talking about the president's, how he's going to make sure that they get what they deserve, which is a peaceful transfer of power. So not really liking the exchange, but a very fair question. With all the fear-mongering that was taking place in this election, how do you square that off with what Biden is saying in that press conference yesterday, that address to the nation? I keep saying press conference, but that address to the nation. How do you square those two? Great question by Fox News. Also, Jean-Pierre says that Biden believes he made the right decision to drop out. She said that President Biden believed he made the right decision to drop out of the presidential race in July, acknowledging there are many election experts analyzing the failed efforts by the Democrat Party with their own opinions on the race dominated by Trump. She spoke to reporters, as I said, at the press briefing. saying that Biden had called Trump to congratulate him. We know all about that. For some people, this election is a time of victory, and for others, it's a time of loss. To state the obvious, Tuesday night's results were not our team's desired outcome. There's going to be a lot of post-mortem analysis of what happened in the coming days, in the coming weeks, even in the coming months. She said, what I can say is, and this is something the president says all the time, you get knocked down, you get back up. The president believes he made the right decision on behalf of the American people, on behalf of this country, to step aside. Let me ask you this, and put on, because I got to take a break, put on not a Trump supporting hat. Put on maybe even a Democrat or a moderate. What do you think, or maybe someone that just didn't like Trump, what do you think Biden's legacy will now be? A lot of people had said no matter what he accomplished, his real legacy was that he defeated Donald Trump. And he can still say that. But will his legacy be the guy who we're calling George Washington for stepping down when this country needed him most? He stepped down to let Harris pave the way. What will their opinion be now when they write the history books? Will it be that he stepped down for the betterment of the country after Harris got destroyed in the election? Or will it be I think there's some Democrats will say, he might have been able to win. Why don't we keep it with him? It's going to be a complicated legacy, and that's why I say put aside the Republican mind thinking and think of it just in general, because we know what his legacy is, inflation, et cetera. But the history books, what will they say? Anyway, one last thing about that press briefing. Karine Jean-Pierre has said that Joe Biden will not pardon his son Hunter. Our answer stands, which is no. I'm of the thought that there wouldn't be a lot of people. I mean, there would be people upset. Don't get me wrong. He deserves punishment, obviously. But I think there'd be a lot of people that almost understand it at this point, because Biden's on his way out. You're looking at the very least, the White House and the Senate being controlled by Republicans, and perhaps the House. I don't know. Just something to. I'm just curious. How outraged would you be? If I would be upset, but I wouldn't be shocked, I guess is maybe the better way of wording it. Anyway, we got to take a break. Running late this morning. We're having too much fun on this program this week. I wonder why that is. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Hi, I'm Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Yo, camping buddy. Okay, you guys ready?
Dude, I thought you were driving.
I thought you were driving.
Oh, I never said I was driving. I definitely can't drive.
Okay.
If you're high, just don't drive. It's illegal everywhere. If you feel different, you drive different.
It's new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Boss Security Roof Cam. Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. It's getting beautiful out there as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Okay, let's go through some viewer comments. From Ken. Hey, Ken. There are some interesting facts related to the last two elections. The 2020 election was held during a pandemic. Some would say the lockdowns were not necessary, but we all know that they resulted in a huge increase in mail-in voting, rule changes done improperly, and allegations of mulling votes. After hours vote counting and tampered with voting machines, the result was a basement-bound candidate that held drive-up rallies, handily winning the popular and electoral votes. 22 million more people voted in this election than voted in 2016. Now, the 2024 election had none of the pandemic drawbacks that were present in the 2020 election, and so far no allegations of widespread fraud. There was historic Republican mail-in voting. We were told historic voter turnout on both sides, and the Republicans enlisted over 100,000 people, or 100,000 poll watchers around the country. The result was that the most energized and energizing presidential candidate that has run for the office won the popular and electoral votes. So far, during this historic voting turnout, there has been about 15 million less voters than in 2020, which brings the voter turnout closer to the turnout in the 2016 election. It makes me wonder why the voting numbers we were told in 2020 were so out of line with any other elections. Well, that was very well put. What do I got here? So many comments. I'm going to read it. But that wouldn't be a bad choice. Sorry, a little inside baseball there from... I will read it. Hold on. Let me get to the other comments. To show how out of touch with reality the media is, that's a different comment, not from Ken. To show how out of touch with reality the media is, Joe Scarborough was shocked to hear how much a pound of butter is. He actually asked if it were made out of gold. They are and were clueless to how citizens feel and felt about having to survive day by day. How out of touch and how insulting, by the way, was that clip from Joe Scarborough? If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Because what was it? He was like, well, someone told me the butter was $3, and then Mika Brzezinski goes, $7. $7? Was it wrapped in gold? I mean, so out of touch. And I can't believe, as a former politician, he didn't realize that he had just stepped in it in a political sense. Because what's the one thing you better learn I don't care if you're running for dog catcher, you better learn what the cost of a gallon of milk is. And in this case, butter. So yes, it wasn't just clueless. It was generally insulting from Joe Scarborough, and shows you how out of touch the elites in the media are in their bubble. All right. Now, I'll read this comment, and I hesitate to, but the viewer who sent it in suggested they would change the channel if I don't. All right. What do Miranda Lambert, Donna Fargo, Walton Goggins, I don't know who that, and a prominent local TV host have in common? They all celebrate a birthday this Sunday, November 10th. Happy birthday, Frank. Happy birthday. Thank you. I looked up to make sure your number on my cell phone wasn't a family member or something. Thank you very much for sending that. Yes, Sunday is my birthday. I actually, I hate when people start telling stories on radio and TV, but I actually met Miranda Lambert one time, and I was so excited to tell her that we have the same birthday, because we have the exact same birthday, the same year and everything. It turns out Miranda Lambert was not as impressed as I was. I even offered to show her my ID. Was not as impressed. You forgot Sinbad. Remember Sinbad too? Enough about me. I don't like that kind of stuff. But thank you. That's very kind of you. Very sweet. Okay. Oh, hey, look at this. A message saying, good morning. Well, good morning. We're going to count it. Tell your veteran listeners we will be serving a free bowl of chili to all veterans at the Corning Moose Lodge on Victory Highway. That's Monday, from noon until gone. I'll continue to promote that. And I'm actually going to be on the air on Monday. So we'll make sure to bring that up on Monday as well. So thank you for that. So again, if you are a veteran, they'll be serving a free bowl of chili to all veterans at the Corning Moose Lodge on Victory Highway in Painted Post Monday from noon until gone. Thank you very much for that. All right. Then we got another wave here. Sorry. Got off on a tangent, but I read it, so don't switch the channel. What did you think about Nancy Pelosi ducking questions on swapping out Biden? Did you see that? The New York Post asked her, do you think you made the right choice? I mean, she's as much as admitted that she was the one that took out Biden. saying I did what I had to do, highlighting the fact that they don't really have a relationship anymore in any way, shape, or form, hadn't talked since that decision was made. Well, she dodged the question of, do you think it's a mistake to kick Joe Biden off the ballot? And then they have that picture. I would recommend that you go to either go to the New York Post online or buy the newspaper this morning and see the front cover of Pelosi really looking distraught, crying. But they also caught on camera Pelosi arguing with Donna Brazile. Now, Donna Brazile was a supporter of Joe Biden. So what, the speculation, the drama is, were they were they arguing? It got so bad that D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser had to kind of step in. Yep. Saying, come on, please, please. They try to sell it later as, no, they were just having a great conversation about how wonderful the Democrats did. Brazile posted that any speculation about the two having a disagreement were false. Such stupidity. Speaker Pelosi and I were discussing all the outstanding House races to be called or the path to a House majority. Folks, this is the Trump era. Lies, disinformation, and gossip. What happened to the USA? Anyway, enough about that. All right, we got to get back on track here. That text threw me off. We'll be right back. We got to take a short break. We've got some more about Nancy Pelosi. We've got a lot about the media that we have to dive into. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking to our friends from Twin Tiers Comic-Con, which is this weekend, the 9th and the 10th at the Arnott Mall Event Center. That's always a fun event, and I always enjoy when the guys can come in and talk with us about it. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Today's top story, increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustlesons, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustlesons' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustlesons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesons.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped. I had a gun and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
Thank you again to Boss Security in Horseheads for the roof cam view. Contact them today. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you now for all the birthday wishes. I appreciate it. But yes, we are going to be on the air on Monday for Veterans Day. So Nancy Pelosi calls Kamala Harris's loss to Trump heartbreaking and had a very emotional conversation with the VP. And the front cover of the Post has Nancy crying or looking as if she was crying. Well, without giving too much away, she talked about the fact that this was a heartbreaking loss. She used the word, meaning Nancy, not Kamala. She also said that she has spoken to the vice president and that it was a very emotional conversation, that they are friends, and the conversation was difficult for both of them. I just wonder, at the end of the day, again, in the history books, what Pelosi's legacy is in this exact time. Will she be viewed as a villain for taking out Biden? Will she be viewed as doing what was necessary? I don't know. Oh, by the way, I think you'll enjoy this. With Trump win, and just to show you that the media hasn't got it, with Trump win, Democrats ask anxious questions about America. And the idea is the Democrats can't believe, and this is from Reuters, just can't believe that their neighbors, their family, their friends could have voted for Trump, and that they don't believe in the America that they believe in. They're struggling to understand what led their neighbors to vote for for Donald Trump. Some fear that Tuesday's presidential election showed that their values, left-leaning, socially liberal, were now firmly a minority among Americans in a divisive campaign. Others were frustrated with the Democrat Party's leadership, who they said has lost touch with much of the electorate who wanted help with the rising costs of living. With few exceptions, Democrats worried about the future for themselves, family, and friends after Tuesday's results revealed the electorate's pronounced shift to the political right. All right. There has been, and I do have to say, we're asking will there be soul searching. I think there are some Democrats that are doing real soul searching. I think there are others that are going to look for one person or one thing to blame. But there's a Democrat strategist, Julie Roginski. She issued some hard truths about Donald Trump's election win during a CNN segment. She said, "I'm going to speak some hard truths to my friends in the Democrat Party. This is not Joe Biden's fault. It's not Kamala Harris's fault. It's not Barack Obama's fault. It's the fault of the Democratic Party in not knowing how to communicate effectively to voters. We are not the party of common sense, which is a message the voters sent to us." I disagree with some of the context there because I think there's a really good theory out there that with Trump's win, it was the death knell, the destruction of kind of the Obama Democrat Party and those policies. So I do believe it's about policies at the end of the day, not about their need to communicate those policies different. Unless she's saying we didn't communicate properly, meaning we didn't do a good job like we normally do, pretending we're more conservative and then actually governing extremely liberal. That maybe if she means it in that sense, she's not wrong. She argued against addressing Latinos as the Latinx because it makes them think that we don't even live in the same planet as they do. It's a good point. When we are too afraid to say, hey, college kids, if you're trashing a campus at Columbia University because you're unhappy about some sort of policy and you're taking over a university and you're trashing it, preventing other students from learning, that is unacceptable. Well, I'd also say making other students feel uncomfortable, intimidating other students, destruction. But anyway, I don't want to be too critical of what she's saying. But we're so worried about alienating one or another cohort in our coalition that we don't know what to say when normal people look at that and say, wait a second, I sent my kid to college so they can learn, not so they can burn buildings and trash lawns. She also blasted pronouns affixed to the end of names, claiming it comes off as virtue signaling. That's not how normal people think. That's not common sense. I've been banging the drum on this, and I don't know how, probably 10 years, if not longer on this. We need to get back to being a party of common sense, that people look at us and say, we understand you. We appreciate what you say because you speak our language. Until we do that, we should stop blaming other people for our own mistakes. We've got more examples of this kind of self-reflection. I'd love to hear your take on it. Because former advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton, we'll try to wrap up this hour with this, Mark Penn released a lengthy list, and I think you're going to find it really interesting, lessons from Donald Trump's historic election victory. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Sheldon and Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
Thanks again to Boss Security in Horseheads for bringing us the roof cam. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Okay, so former advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton, Mark Penn, went on X to kind of take a look at Trump's historic election victory. And I found this really fascinating, and it's not old news by any means, but you may have seen it by now. It came out yesterday, a little after this program, but I think these are worth mentioning, and I'd love your opinion on them. So again, former advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton, Mark Penn, had this to say. Lessons of the election. America is a center-right country at heart. Only 25% are liberal, and the other 75% won't be ruled by the 25. I thought that was a great line. Can I say it again? Only 25% are liberal, and the other 75% won't be ruled by that 25. Next, campaigns are about issues and serious proposals and positions, and you can't avoid having them. Demonizing opponents and using lawfare to try to jail your opponents can and will backfire. Voters don't listen to Hollywood celebrities when it comes to voting. Most voters see Hollywood as great for entertaining, but is far removed from their concerns when it comes to voting. The working class and middle American voters are done being disrespected by college elites. They want real, merit-based opportunities, not government subsidies. Identity politics is ultimately losing politics, as voters care more about issues, not identity, when living their lives. Young people are waking up and beginning to reject woke politics, and their turn to the center is the surprise of this election. America wants a country with real borders and a working immigration system. America's innovation comes from preserving freedom and opportunity, not from government direction. America supports Israel and sees Iran as an enemy of civilization. The mainstream media, I'm going to reiterate this one. The mainstream media allowed itself to become a tool for a political party and an ideology and needs to reform itself. And finally, Joe Biden should never have run for re-election. There's a couple other takes, and I thought that was very well put. And we're going to take a look at the media in the next hour and this idea that they need to reform themselves. Mark Penn's not the only one saying it. There was a lot of lessons that can be learned from that post that he made to the Democrat Party. Now, here's the question of the day. Will they learn from this? There is an opinion piece by Ryan Williams saying, what will Democrats learn from Trump's reelection? The answer, nothing. And I think we're already seeing a little bit of that. But I've also warned in a way, and I think we said it on yesterday's program. I think right now there's still the shock and things haven't set in yet. So as we near January 20th, I think they'll turn back to their old ways. They're already starting to a little bit, as you see people essentially call Americans racist, sexists for this vote. We'll get into all this. So I definitely don't think the media will learn from this. I do think that some Democrats, like that instance with Mark Penn, will learn some from it, but will they have enough? Will they take away and use it in the next campaign? That's maybe the $1 million question. But we have to take a break and wrap up hour number one. In hour number two, we're going to be talking with our friends from Twin Tiers Comic-Con. You don't want to miss that. We have fun with that. Last year, we talked with them about it. The Twin Tiers Comic-Con is on Saturday and Sunday at the Arnett Mall Event Center. So that interview coming up in just a little bit. Thank you for all the comments this morning, all the waves. We're having a blast, like always. So stay with us. Just 1 hour left together on what has been a historic week here, not just on Frankly Speaking, but for the country. So stay with us. We'll be right back with hour number two.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now is the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name.
Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us as we're having a blast this morning, like every morning. According to Fox News, there's 5 mistakes that doomed Kamala Harris's campaign against Trump. And we are going to talk about the media's response to all this in just a moment. But we're kind of doing a little bit of a recap of what some people have to say. Number 1, I should say, Harris declares she would not do anything different from President Biden. And we've heard that even election night being mentioned a lot about her appearance on The View. That was definitely hurtful in the long run. Second, Harris accused of using new accent during campaign events and word salad gaffes. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that one as much. Well, listen, it doesn't help her. But I think there was bigger issues at play here. And I think, according to some comments, people would agree that it wasn't just the poor candidate herself. It wasn't just about Kamala herself. It was about a bigger movement across the country. Harris, this I do think was a big knock against her. Harris avoids the media for weeks and fails to hold a press conference. Then she touted celebrity endorsements in the campaign events. That's something I wonder if Democrats will learn from. I don't think they will, because I think they like being a part of that culture where they are on stage with celebrities and performers, because who wouldn't want that in a way, that excitement of a band playing behind you, that type of thing. But you would think after Hillary Clinton, they would get away from that, but they continue to tout the celebrity endorsements. Now, that she can't stop someone from writing an op-ed, some celebrity writing an op-ed or going on their TikTok or whatever to promote a candidate. But the constant rallies with these celebrities, again, I point to Bruce Springsteen, because I always have a problem with Bruce Springsteen, because he rails against the one percenters, the rich, while he charges $300-400 for a general admission seat, to his concert. But continuing with what Fox said, they also blame the lackluster VP selection, meaning Walz. I think that's another big one. None of these I think are what ultimately did the campaign in for Harris. I think it was the message Trump was making and that people were struggling. I think it was a laundry list of things, but I do think at the end of the day it was a very bad candidate. And VP pick Walz instead of Shapiro. Again, we talked about it, I know, yesterday, that Shapiro probably didn't want the pick, and that's probably what it really was at the end of the day. But Walz, disastrous selection. So Stephen A. Smith, the ESPN sports pundit, blamed Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama for alienating voters. In the end, celebrities who are worth hundreds of millions, if not billions, who most American citizens feel are incredibly detached from their way of life and their quality of life, we're not going to get away and guilt them into doing something different than what their experience says is going on and what they should do about it. And to his point, listen, you might love putting on Taylor Swift on your drive into work, and you just put on Taylor Swift and you listen to her all day. That's fine. But then do you say, well, I now look at her endorsement and go that direction? You may like her music, and I don't mean to just pick on her. There's numerous examples. That was just one that they touted as the biggest one that could ever happen. Does that change your vote? Because you might like Taylor Swift, but do you believe as they show her in different cities to catch baseball games and specifically football games, and of course, bopping all over in her private jet, do you really think that she understands your concerns? It's a topic that comes up numerous times, but Democrats keep falling right in the trap, if you want to call it, of touting the celebrity endorsements. Then she talked about, Stephen A. Smith talked about Oprah Winfrey telling voters that if they don't vote for Kamala, they will never have the opportunity to vote again. This is the kind of stuff that alienates an electorate, alienates a voter. Because the freedom that you tell them you have, you try to confiscate morally by letting them know you ain't worth a darn unless you vote the way we say you should vote. Who's going to go for that in a general election? With an economic rife with inflation, with over 12 million people crossing the border, the value of their dollar dissipating before our very eyes? That's a good point. Basically saying we're going to take away your vote, essentially morally, if you don't vote the way we're telling you to. That's a very good point. Because the freedom that you tell them you have, you try to confiscate morally by letting them know that if you don't vote essentially the way they're telling you to. I think that's such a good point. That if you don't vote the way they want you to, The commentator next took aim at Michelle Obama, the claims that she stumped when she was stumping for Harris, when Obama told black people that if they don't vote for Harris, they were essentially race traitors. If we don't agree with you, we're against you, Stephen A. Smith said. How do you think the men felt about that? So how do you think, so we have to do what you tell us to do? Otherwise, we're anti-you? You thought that worked? Do you all know anything about men? You think that's going to work? That's Stephen A. Smith. But now let's take a look at the media and how they're quote unquote learning. First of all, if you haven't seen, Fox News crushed its rivals in the ratings on election night for whatever that's worth. CNN actually fell behind MSNBC. And I get that to a little extent because, if you love Harris and hate Trump, the coverage you're probably going to watch is MSNBC over CNN. Not that CNN isn't very liberal as well, but you want that full-throated liberal effect. You want that full-throated hate. Fox News cruised to an easy victory in the ratings battle for election night coverage, marking the second straight time the network beat rivals CNN and MSNBC in viewership for presidential results. Fox News reeled in 10.3 million viewers from 8 to 11 p.m. The ratings were more than double that of CNN, which finished behind MSNBC for the first time on a presidential election night. MSNBC's coverage, I'm sure I probably need to tell you, I can't imagine you were watching, was anchored by Rachel Maddow. It averaged 6 million viewers, besting CNN's 5.1 million views. I think there's also something to be said about Fox News declaring Trump the victor when they did, hours upon hours before anyone else. And obviously you don't want to rush it and get it wrong, but they were looking at the same numbers that an ABC or CBS was looking at. And I remember watching, I won't say which one, as I was flipping through that morning, and they're going, yes, if you look at the map mathematically, it looks like there's no possible way Harris can win this state, but we just want to be sure. And you're going, okay, what funny business is going on here? And that's why I made it such an important point on Wednesday morning's broadcast to mention that the other outlets other than Fox had declared him a victor. So Fox News, anyway, crushing their rivals in ratings on election night. Now, CBS, a veteran CBS news reporter, called out the New York Times for a headline about Trump's victory. Journalist and author Jan Crawford, because there are some that are starting to understand, starting to get it. Journalist and author Jan Crawford took to X to criticize the New York Times after they published this headline. Did you see what the headline said? In all caps, Trump's America. Victory changes nation's sense of itself. Well, Crawford did not like that, saying, isn't the headline here, victory reveals New York Times doesn't understand nation? They are so out of touch. They don't even realize that the only thing that has changed is their perception of the nation. Just like the Obamas, they're so disappointed in us. The blue bubble, and now I'm bringing up some Twitter users. The blue bubble elite have been out of touch for several years. The headline is a continuation of the paper of record's critical coverage of Trump, saying, again, calling him a wannabe fascist, saying that nothing's off limits to try to bring down Trump. The Times ran the headline, America hires a strong man on Wednesday. This was a conquering of the nation, not by force, but with a permission slip, the Times wrote. Now America stands on the precipice of an authoritarian style of governance never before seen in its 248-year history. Yep. Is anybody reading the Times anymore? In an editorial from the same day, the New York Times suggests that Trump poses a threat to the rights of citizens and the integrity of government institutions. Quote, whatever drove this decision among these voters, however, all Americans should now be wary of an incoming Trump administration that is likely to put a top priority on amassing unchecked power and punishing its perceived enemies, both of which Mr. Trump has repeatedly vowed to do. This is just another example of why Trump was so popular. Yes, this is why one of the many reasons why he is so popular. People are sick of the bias. They're sick of the attacks on the American people. We're going to show you some more examples of that when we come back. Yes, I'm running late. We're going to talk to our friends Mike and Kevin from Twin Tiers Comic-Con, not after this break, but the break after that. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
A knife taking this much abuse and didn't need sharpening. Introducing the incredible NutriBlade knives, coated with granite stone non-stick and made of stainless steel. One of the hardest substances on earth. Now everyone can chop, slice, and dice just like a pro. Order right now to get this professional 6-piece set of NutriBlades for just $29.95. We'll even ship them to you free. Get your own NutriBlade knives, the last knives you'll ever buy.
Okay, Dad, look at you.
I look nice, don't I?
I see you.
Adding your own flavor to fashion comes with age.
Oh, man, that's the best one yet.
Forgetting how to add doesn't. Finding it difficult to work with numbers may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Dad, are you okay?
An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one.
High school. Yeah.
Hey, Dad. Do you want to talk about what happened earlier?
Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's. Some things come with age.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. A beautiful morning on historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go through some viewer comments here. Gotta love KJP storming off when pressed on questions of a peaceful transition. Maybe she realizes she will soon be unemployed. It was interesting to watch. But I will say she won't be unemployed. CNN will probably scoop her up. She'll be working on one of the major media outlets because they don't learn their lesson. But yes, in the White House capacity, she will soon be unemployed. Next up, from Ken. That was an easy question to answer. No, the Democrats, legacy media, and social media will not take that advice. They already know what they are doing is not popular, but there is too much money to be made with the agendas they are pushing. And history tells them that even though their agenda isn't popular, they are able to divide the populace and manipulate the message enough to be able to stay the course. Yeah, I mean, I think they've proved it. I agree, Ken. They've proved it time and time again that in the media specifically, they don't learn their lesson. Because at the end of the day, just like Mark Penn said, they have become a tool for a party, meaning the Democrats, and for an ideology. So yeah, you'll see a lot of talks of ratings are down or this. They don't care, because just like the New York Times said, nothing is off limits to bring down Trump, and that means Trump and his supporters and what is the MAGA movement that they thought was dead, or thought would be dead on election night, and then with the popular vote. Not that the Electoral College, that's the most important, but with the popular vote on the piggybacked on that, it's why there's so much shock. They thought there was a movement that was dying, and now it turns out it is more popular than ever. Next comment. I agree about mistakes, but both parties have been in a set routine for decades. Any mistake that they make have a very short lifespan. Mistakes don't necessarily change them in the long run. Both parties still rely on the same rhetoric to win voters: tax and spend, trickle-down economics, abortion, inflation, etc. Thank you very much. Next comment. I have not yet heard anybody make this connection. Harris still won among college-educated voters. Trump surprisingly won the young men. A clear trend is less young men are choosing college, and student bodies are increasingly female majority. Go to college and you get indoctrinated and vote Democrat. Go to work and you vote common sense. It is not that young men are increasingly misogynistic or racist. It is just that fewer are being brainwashed these days by avoiding college. That's a very good point. Less brainwashing. Also, and I've heard others make this is not my thought, but with young men and some young women as well, they're, as we all would be, sick and tired of being called horrible names and saying they are filled with hate. That there's nothing they can do to correct themselves because they are young, or they're male, or because they're white, or whatever the scenario may be. You know, at some point you throw up your hands and say, I'm just this bad person? I'm just going to always be this bad person? There's no way to atone for this sin of something I was born with, or born as, whatever the case may be. It's a really, I think, as Mark Penn put it, the woke ideology has grown tiring to these people who have been in it their whole life. Their whole life has been emails with they, them on the bottom, or their whole life has been being lectured about how bad they are, and whoever their parents are, and it's. So I agree with you, though. I think it does show a lot about college education. Oh, hey, I got to tell you this just to prepare you, and we're going to take a break here in just a little bit, but I want to prepare you. Because as Trump works to repair this economy and improve this economy just like he did back in 2016 and create an amazing economy, as he does that, you are going to hear that it's actually Biden's economy. I know I'm not telling you anything surprising, but it started already. Representative Gregory Meeks saying that voters looked at short-term situation and not long-term. By the way, Trump inherited a good economy. I think this is what happened. When you talk about it, Bill Clinton talked about it, it's the economy, stupid. Can we retire that already? It was James Carville who said it, but can we retire that? Every time someone says it, they act like they're really brilliant. They act as if, I don't know if you ever heard this one, but it's the economy, stupid. It's kind of like nothing burger. I wish some of these sayings would go away. But anyway, what we're talking about here is as a result of the pandemic that took place all over the world, we had high inflation. We had a situation where things became more expensive. This was something that took place as a result of the pandemic after Barack Obama gave Donald Trump a good economy. Okay, there you go. So Donald Trump was given a good economy back in 2016. Did you know that? So let's continue now that we're in 2024. So Barack Obama gave Donald Trump a good economy. And so now things are coming down. But people still feel that the cost of rent and the cost of housing and to get goods are too expensive. They feel that way. They don't feel that way. They are that way. What does that mean, they feel that way? Boy, this Representative Meeks thinks the American people are stupid, that they can't see the receipt. You just feel like your groceries bill is out of control, that your house, your basically life, everything in your life just to survive is out of control. But you just feel that way. It's not the truth, but I'll continue. Let's start after the Barack Obama thing. After Barack Obama gave Donald Trump a good economy. And so now things are coming down, but people still feel that the cost of rent and the cost of housing and to get goods are too expensive. And I think the vice president did talk about that, and we did start to move, and we're at a point now, most economists will say, and they said, whoever became the next president will be inheriting a good economy. That economy was created. So I think the focus was that people were looking at the short-term situation of their immediate lives and not looking at the long-term ramifications of what a second Trump administration would do, particularly for them, because we know that if Trump is like the first administration, his first administration is all about Donald Trump and not about anyone else. He's enriched himself and our national security became at stake. Okay, a lot to dissect here. This is interesting. Donald Trump inherited a good economy from Barack Obama. Then he's inheriting another good economy from Biden and Harris. It's wonderful how that works out for Gregory Meeks to make that laughable claim. But you were so selfish, focused on the short-term situation. You're selfish. Saying that looking at the short-term situation of their immediate lives. Yeah, do you mean surviving? Living? Do you mean just making it day by day? That was selfish. He didn't say selfish. I'm putting words in his mouth. But that you were just focused on the short term of, actually living, of actually being able to provide your family with food, to actually be able to provide your family with heat and electricity. You were only thinking about the short term. You weren't thinking about the reasons why we hate Donald Trump. So out of touch. So back to many viewers' points so far. No, they will not learn their lesson. But I thought you should know that Donald Trump inherited a good economy from Barack Obama and then inherited, and is now inheriting a good one from Biden and Harris. It's really lucky how that worked. All right, we got to take a short break. And when we come back, our friends from Twin Tiers Comic-Con, stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be, what break is this? We'll be right back.
Introducing a brand new kitchen appliance that does all the work for you. A hassle-free solution that sears food, stirs it, even shreds it in one pot that you can set, then forget about, and come back to delicious, perfectly prepared meals that cook up to 60% faster without having to do a thing, except enjoy a little extra free time. From the trusted brand Power Excel, there's the StirMax Multi-Cooker, the revolutionary new countertop appliance with a built-in auto stirrer that gives you the freedom of adding your favorite ingredients and walking away. No more stirring food. StirMax is the one-pot solution that does everything for you. The secret is the unique pot shape and groundbreaking StirMax technology that's automatically programmed to rotate the paddle clockwise, then counterclockwise to help prevent jams and food from burning while infusing flavor. Powerful enough to even shred food. With large 7.5 quart capacity and lightweight, attractive design, the entire pan goes right to the table. StirMax features 9 different cooking functions: saute, slow cook, cook stews or soups, keep warm, steam and boil, cook risotto or rice. Plus, the multi-step smart presets, StirMax or BraiseMax, that sears and sautés food before automatically switching to simmer. With premium ceramic coating that's BPA, PFOA, and PTFE-free, scratch-proof, and won't ever stick. Then the entire pan goes right into the dishwasher. Now, you can try the Power Excel StirMax Multi-Cooker with tempered glass lid and recipe guide in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. But it gets even better. You also get the entire bonus package absolutely free. You get the steamer and rice basket. For fresh, healthy meals, the StirMax serving spoon and ladle. It snaps right on top of your StirMax, plus $100 in free grocery coupons. We'll even ship your order next business day, absolutely free. Plus, every StirMax comes with a 1-year ironclad VIP protection plan and a 90-day money-back guarantee. This is an exclusive TV-only offer, so order now.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. And joining us on the show, it's time for Comic-Con. Thanks for coming back on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
We have a lot to talk about. So this is around 10 years. Explain that, right around there?
Yeah. We've been doing shows for a little over 10 years, but this will be the 10th anniversary of Twin Tiers Comic-Con. We missed a couple of years due to COVID, but we started in 2014 with Twin Tiers.
Did you ever think it would last this long?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever thought we'd get this big.
That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, our original idea was just to kind of have like a community event. Almost, we were thinking back to things like Arts in the Park and like stuff like that, where we could have this annual thing that people could look forward to and kind of all hang out and buy some artwork and meet some artists. And now it's just grown into this weekend-long affair with thousands of people come, and it's like, wow, it's amazing.
It's really cool, and it grows larger each year. Correct. Yeah. So what's new this year for people that are avid Comic-Con attendees?
Yeah, this year we've expanded out into the mall a little bit further. We're using a storefront for our panel Q&A room. We've got artists and vendors and some other attractions right out in the mall hallways. Our big Smash Brothers tournament will be out in center court. And then we've got a bunch more artists and vendors in the main event center than we've had in the past couple of years.
So you're kind of taking over the mall
pretty
soon.
We're working on it, We're everything outside the gate we're affectionately referring to as the Commons at Twin Tiers Comic-Con. So it's basically everything from center court all the way down to where the H.L. Stevens started across from Planet Fitness, where that's where our panel room's going to be. So we're going to have that whole stretch and then the event center itself. So we fit the room and we're spilling out.
We're talking about what's new this year, but what if someone's never attended a Comic-Con? What should they know?
So a lot of people ask that question. A Comic-Con is generally a pop culture festival. So you're going to see a bunch of great artists and craftspeople and writers, and you're going to have some celebrity guests and a bunch of great vendors with all sorts of different merchandise you can buy. The panel Q&As where you can sit and ask questions to celebrities or artists and learn some things about the industry. We'll have like a huge board gaming section where you can learn and try some new board games, or the kids zone where you can bring the kids for free activities with nonprofit organizations. So it's just a long list of different things that you can enjoy all with your one ticket price.
You mentioned a lot of people ask you that question. I think I asked last year too.
Yeah, there is kind of that kind of craft fair trade show element where there are a lot of comic book professionals and local artists and regional artists. We have artists coming from all over the state and some other states as well, looking to sell their artwork, and celebrities come and they're selling their autographs and selfies with them and photo ops and things like that. But there's also plenty of free things to do. We've got free photo op opportunities. We have Twin Tiers, Finger Lakes Ludosport is going to be doing some lightsaber demos. We have some board games that people can play for free. We have a book nook this year. We've never had that before. So we're going to have a whole bunch of books that kids can kind of sit down and read.
Yep.
And
the Pokemon hunt, where you go through the mall and find the Pokemon and can win some free prizes. That's a free activity that families can sign up for.
That's all included with admission. So if you show up and you're like, I don't really feel like buying any artwork today, but there's so many different things included with admission that you can do.
You've been doing it so many years. Do you find it easier because people are now contacting you to come back?
Yes.
Yeah.
That must be nice.
It is. Yeah. That's the greatest compliment we can get, I think, is when creators and celebrities and vendors come to us to want to come back to the show. That's probably the best compliment we can get.
Yeah. This year when we put artist and vendor booths on sale, within 24 hours we had, I think, 47 artists sign up and something like 17 or 18 vendors or retailers sign up. So it was like,
that's remarkable.
Crazy how like we usually have famous vehicles and replica vehicles on the floor. Like we had the Bluesmobile once, we had like the Batmobile and things like that, and we didn't even have room for those this year because we had so many artists and vendors sign up. So it's like we have nowhere to put them.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good problem to have. Let's talk about the celebrities. I think this intrigues a lot of people because there is artwork, but some people go just for the kind of fun of meeting their favorite celebrities. So who are the celebrities you have this year?
All right, yeah.
Is it too long of a list?
James Duval.
Okay.
He was Frank the Rabbit and Donnie Darko. He was in Gone in 60 Seconds, a bunch of other great projects.
Yeah.
We got Michelle Ang coming from New Zealand. She very rarely does U.S. appearances. She was the main character in the Bad Batch Star Wars show. She was in Fear the Walking Dead. So she's an award-winning actress from out there. Yes. Noah Hathaway, who was Atreyu in The Neverending Story, will be joining us. And then we've got Brian O'Halloran and Marilyn Gigliotti from Clerks.
Oh, of course.
Great additions that we're super excited about. And then we've got Carrie Means and Dana Snyder, two voice actors who did Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Dana Snyder's done a whole lot of stuff. And then for the first convention appearance, David Forseth, who's done a bunch of really great video game voice work.
Yeah.
So that's our celeb lineup this year.
Wow. Never has this show had such amazing special effects.
We bring our own special effects.
Yeah. What goes into your choices for these guests? Is it something maybe your preference, or is it you hear from the people?
It's a mix. Yeah. Sometimes we're seeking people out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we build relationships with their management, and and they have a stable of different talent that we can kind of access, and it's a little easier to access once you have a relationship.
Yeah.
So there's different ways that sometimes we go to other shows and we create contact and we network and try to get people that way.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the things that we can do is, or that we often do, is kind of theme it around anniversaries as well. So, like, for example, we had Noah Hathaway from Neverending Story. He Neverending Story is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. Wow. So it's really cool that we get to have him here. And they're actually we're doing a couple of, or the Regal at Arnott Mall is doing a few screenings.
Oh,
so
what a good idea.
We just announced this yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're doing James Duval with Donnie Darko is doing a screening tomorrow, Friday night on the 8th at the Regal Arnott Mall at 7 p.m. And then Noah Hathaway is doing a Q&A with Neverending Story screening on Sunday at 7 p.m.
Oh, what a great idea.
Yeah, so it's kind of all tied in. And then aside from that, we've got the two actors from Clerks. Clerks is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, so we're kind of tying it into that, too.
Yeah.
It's very...
We're talking about Twin Tiers Comic-Con. It's November 9th and 10th, but now you're even expanding days with that, with the viewing on the 8th. With the celebrities, is it difficult to book the celebrities and get everything working and in motion, or have you gotten used to it at this point?
It's some are easier than others.
Okay.
So
I won't make you name names.
Yeah, no, of course not. Yeah, but no, sometimes things go a lot smoother. But part of the issue is a lot of them are very busy.
Right.
And so part of the issue is you're booking around their filming schedules sometimes, and so it can be a little tricky. And sometimes there's delays in making sure that they can actually make the dates.
Okay.
So some are a little easier than others, year by year, just based on everybody's busy schedules.
Or we've had guests that have canceled or postponed for contractual reasons, or sometimes you never know. Somebody might end up sick, but hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
And we should note, because if someone hasn't been to Comic-Con, there is an extra cost to that, correct, with celebrities?
So if you're going to do if you want to pay for a signature or a photo op, there's usually an extra cost.
Okay.
There's generally not a cost just to meet them, say hello, and you can also go to the panel Q&As, which are included with your ticket price. So you can go to the Q&As, you can go up to the tables and say hi. The added cost is if you want to have something signed or if you want a photo.
Totally makes sense. And we talked about this last year. This is a very affordable day of fun with Twin Tiers Comic-Con. Could you talk to us a little bit about the pricing?
Yeah, sure. So a single day pass this year pre-sale is $30. The weekend pass pre-sale is $40. And so if you get a weekend pass for $40, we provide entertainment from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday and 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday, with panels most of each day. So you can essentially get 13, 14 hours of enjoyment for $40.
And there is a VIP package too, correct?
Yep.
There is.
What is that consist of?
Yeah, the VIP package is a $75 pre-sale, and that is early entry at 10:30 a.m. on both days, because normally the doors open for GA at 11 a.m. And then aside from that, they get collector's badges and also some exclusive artwork that shows up in the VIP pack. So we've got kind of this X-Men stuff. We've got some Deadpool stuff. This one is really cool. We love this. This is our anniversary. It's kind of a mock-up of a comic cover.
Oh, what a good idea.
So people can get this and bring it to a comic artist, and they can kind of sketch a commission during the show.
Oh, what a great idea.
Yeah.
You mentioned the cost of pre-sale, but since today is Friday, is there still pre-sale?
Pre-sale is still going. Yep.
Okay.
I usually cut off the pre-sale around 10 or 11 p.m. on Friday night. So
okay.
Yeah.
So there's still plenty of time.
But there's still time.
Yes. And it sounds like there's so much to do. And you mentioned panels, and we're going to talk about some other things that will be available at Twin Tiers Comic-Con. But where can people find the schedule for the panels and for all the activities?
Sure, that is all going up on our website today, as well as the celebrity pricing for what they charge for autographs and photo ops and things like that, because everybody's different and the guests all set their own prices, so we have to kind of catalog all that in one spot. And the other thing is that tickets for the movie screenings are also on the website, so basically, if you don't find it on the ticket page, look for it in the show information tab on the website, and we will have everything up there, as well as the new giant size floor map this year.
Good idea. Some of the other things I don't think we've mentioned in the past, and they may be new. I'd be curious if they are. Video game tournament, is this a yearly thing?
It is. We do. It's a Smash Brothers. We've done this now for a few years. It's essentially like a regional. It's 80, 90, 100 Smash Brothers players get together and have a big tournament on Saturday.
Does it get competitive?
It can be, yeah. And this year, it sounds like we've got a couple of top players in the country coming to play in this tournament. So they're doing Smash Brothers Melee and Smash Brothers Ultimate. So
usually we end up with a good 60 or 70 registrants, and I just actually a couple hours ago they said they're at 85, and he's expecting maybe 10 to 15 more. So it's going to be even bigger this year.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And this is something else that people that may not participate in this tournament but can watch, right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, because it's right in center court. Anybody who's at the mall can just walk in and say, what's going on here?
And also tell us about the costume contest, because I know there's cash prizes available. What do people need to know to sign up for the costume contest?
So when you come in, you're going to see signs pointing you over to the cosplay contest sign-up area.
Okay.
You do a registration. There's a panel of 4 judges who do some pre-judging, and then Saturday at 5 o'clock is the cosplay contest main event in our panel room. And there are 4 main prizes, and there's $1,000 in total cash prizes. So there's four different winners, and they all get a different breakdown of the prize money.
How elaborate do the costumes get?
Oh boy,
yeah,
there is some crazy ones. We have seen some insane costumes, things that clearly took weeks, months, maybe even longer to make. Some people really bring it.
Yeah. It's really funny that, like, we talked about how large the show has gotten, that there are times where I'll see photo albums on Facebook and whatnot, or things that we're tagged in, and I'll see these costumes, and I'm like, where was that? I didn't even see that. Like, I'm all over the show floor, and I don't even see these crazy costumes sometimes, but they're so cool.
Like, I always wonder, they are really cool when you see the pictures, but I always wonder how comfortable it can be being in those costumes all day long.
Yeah, so it's got to be tough, and some of them don't stay in them all day. We do provide some areas where people can change in and out of their costumes, particularly those who wear like really big stuff, like people walking around in Godzilla costumes and stuff. It's really, they can't generally do it all day. So
giant robots.
We try to work with some of those folks to help them out.
And then actually, I don't know if we mentioned, on Sunday is the kids costume contest. So that's for 11 and under.
Oh, good idea.
And those are non-cash prizes. Same sort of go to the costume contest sign up table for that. And we have the non-cash prizes for all the kids, and that's provided by Checkpoint Gaming Lounge in Arnott Mall. And the cash prizes on Saturday are from Sound Go Round, sponsored by Sound Go Round in Vestal.
Yeah.
I asked you this last year, but I'm going to ask again. Do you think it's possible to do all of this in one day? I'm not talking about the things that are specifically scheduled, but one day, is it possible?
Yeah, like you could do just about everything in a day, but you obviously, the panels are different each day.
Right.
Yeah. So you could probably, depending on what your interests are, you could be there for a couple hours if you're really just trying to maybe shop. But if you want to experience everything, it's a full day of activities. And if you want to do the panels, it's 2 full days of activities.
And the panels come at no extra charge, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. That's all included. There's so many things that are just included with
that's what it seems like. Do you find, I asked a question about one day, maybe you don't notice, but do you find that most people do come 2 days though?
I would say there's a good percentage of people who come for both days. We get a pretty good amount of VIPs, 2-day tickets. I'm not sure what the breakdown actually is, but a lot of people do come for both days.
And things have changed a little bit this year, I've noticed, just because we've announced more celebrity and actor guests than we usually do. So I've seen an uptick in 2-day ticket sales for sure, which is interesting. So do
you think that's the most common, maybe for someone that's not into Comic-Cons or have never been, do you think that's what brings them in the most, are the celebrities?
I think so. I think they're a big draw. In the past, the vehicles have been a decent draw as well, but I think the celebrities definitely do it, and then the comic guests are also a very good step up for admission sales. And we didn't even actually mention that. I don't even know if we did, that we have a kids zone that is filled with a whole bunch of area nonprofits that are doing free activities for kids.
Great idea.
So things like Plinko games and Lego building games, and I think there's an inflatable archery from Scouting.
Yep, Boy Scouts will be there with
all
archery.
sorts of just different things. And kids get in free, so it's all kind of included.
Well, we're talking about Twin Tiers Comic-Con. You can find out more at twintierscomiccon.com, November 9th and 10th, so tomorrow and Sunday at the Arnott Event Center. Before we go, the most difficult question I can ask, what are you specifically looking forward to the most? For it to be over?
I'm so tired.
We are at the part in the process where, yes, a lot of us are looking forward to Monday. But no, it's what makes this a lot of fun is the massive amount of people walking around for 2 days with big smiles on their faces. It's such a positive atmosphere. It always has been. There's so much variety in what we offer. So like it could be grandmothers or
Right.
or 5-year-olds who are walking around thrilled with everything that they're seeing and doing all day long. So that's probably the best part. Yeah.
There was one year where we did a Facebook contest, and this woman won who, and the contest was that she got a free autograph from a celebrity of her choice, and she got like this whole, nice treatment, like VIP treatment from at the show, and she was like crying, and she was so happy, and I was like, oh, this is like, it's things like that you're like, wow, all the stress and all the late nights and all that, like it's all. This is why we do it.
Yeah, you're making a lot of memories for people. Lifelong memories, really.
Yeah, people have met at our show and gotten married.
Got everything covered.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm looking forward to that we didn't mention yet is we have someone coming with Indiana Jones movie memorabilia, movie memorabilia from Indiana. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
So it's all set up in cases to look like the warehouse at the end of Raiders, and it's going to be, and it's one of the things that's included with admission. There's no additional cost to that.
One of the largest collections in the country.
Yeah, I think he said it's the third largest collection of movie memorabilia, so it's kind of...
That's so impressive. Well, well, we've got to get going. Best of luck for this weekend, because I know you put a lot of work to it, year-round work, really.
Thank you.
So best of luck with Comic-Con tomorrow and Sunday, and we'll talk to you next year. How's that?
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for inviting us on this very, very light news week.
Yes,
that you have here.
thank you. This is the breaking news right now on Frankly Speaking. That's why I wanted you to be on. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We will be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Frankly Speaking, Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Okay, Dad, look at you.
I look nice, don't I?
I see you.
Adding your own flavor to fashion comes with age.
Oh, man, that's the best one yet.
Forgetting how to add doesn't. Finding it difficult to work with numbers may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Dad, are you okay?
An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one.
High school.
Hey, Dad. Do you want to talk about what happened earlier?
Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's. Some things come with age. Some others don't.
Fox College Ball Friday and Big Noon Saturday kick off a whole new era of college football with new matchups, historic rivalries, and all of the Big 10, Big 12, and Mountain West action. This is the season we've all been waiting for. College football on.
And we are back. Thank you to Boss Security and Horseheads for bringing us the Roof Cam. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Thanks to the guys from Twin Tiers Comic-Con for being on the program. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Let's go through some great viewer comments, a lot of them. I appreciate it. This election renewed my faith in the American people. They want lower costs so we can move ahead. Don't like being told things are cheap when they are not. Yes, and I think that was a huge mistake that the media specifically kept making. This new Democrat Party can't seem to understand this. Still trying to figure out why they lost when all they have to do is look in the mirror. This Prop 1 that passed, maybe you can explain what has changed. Well, that's the big question. It's the unknown. which actually ties in with Ken's comment here in a second, kind of the government action that's unknown. If you recall, when we had Bobby Ann Cox on the program, the lawyer who was speaking out against Prop 1, and it did pass, she was against it. So many Republican politicians, though Bobby Ann Cox was not that, were against it as well. It's about the unknown. It's about, well, what does this do for instance, women's sports? What will this do when it comes to illegal migrants voting, et cetera, et cetera. So if that's what you're asking, it's the unknown because of the generic nature in which it was written and knowingly written that way. So let's tie that in with kind of what Ken had to say, though not specifically about Prop 1. Frank, I received notification that the premium for our two-person Medicare Advantage plan will increase by $204 per month. When I asked why such a large monthly increase, I was told it was due to inflation, but mostly Medicare's increase in Part D coverage premiums. So the Biden administration worked to cap out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs, resulted in higher Part D premiums, which again confirms that for every government action that they tell us they're doing for us, there's equal and opposite reaction that they don't tell us. There you go. Thank you, Ken. That ties in wonderfully with explaining Prop 1 as well. You're exactly right. Thank you for that information. Next up, we were referencing Democrat Representative Meeks, who said it turns out Trump inherited a great economy from Obama. Now he's inheriting a great economy from Biden. This is from a different viewer. A good economy, question mark? I'm a farmer, and I just paid $2.89 for farm fuel. It has been as high as $4.25. Trump's last term, I paid $1.12. Tell me things are good. $1.12. Now that's good. Yes, I agree. It's, again, going back to that first comment, people were sick of that. That was another part of this whole election where, and that's what Meeks did, Representative Meeks did in this interview, saying that you essentially selfishly voted for a short-term solution for your immediate lives, meaning so you can survive. And not that it's a short-term solution, by the way, but you were voting so you can survive and maybe put food on the table for your family. You were voting for that selfishly when you should have been voting because you hate Trump, is essentially what Representative Meeks was saying. So yes, $1.12, that's good. But remember, according to Representative Meeks and so many in the media, you're wrong for feeling that way, because on paper, someone was joking about it. I think it was on Fox News yesterday, saying, "Well, you didn't read page 370 or 327 of the statistical guide from some bureaucrat, right? Where it tells us the economy is good." Next up, the talking heads meltdown continues, blaming the voters and never admit that they had a terrible candidate. Yeah, the blame game on the voters, just like when Biden called half the country garbage, and just like what Mark Cuban said about intelligent, strong women not being around Trump, just like Kathy Hochul, our governor, saying that if you vote for Republican, you're anti-American, anti-women. It's all about blaming the voter. It's not a good strategy, but I'll continue. Never admitting they had a terrible candidate. If Biden were to step down willingly or otherwise, then Harris would become the first woman president. That would truly be a shame. At least she would not be the answer to the Jeopardy question, who was the first elected president. That's a good point, Fred. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I know a lot of people are speculating on that. Well, I guess time will tell. But back to the media's blame game, Joy Reid from MSNBC scolded male Latino Trump voters. Quote, "You own everything that happens to your mixed status families." What is it? I'm telling you, whether it's Joe Scarborough, whether it's Joy Reid, the things that they're saying make you uncomfortable to say, that in most circles would be deemed, if not borderline racist, outright racist. I mean, watching that interview with Joe Scarborough and Al Sharpton was uncomfortable. I thought very disrespectful to certain groups that voted for Trump. While 91% of black women voted for Kamala Harris, 53% of white women overall voted for Trump, despite the open disrespect and demonization hurled by J.D. Vance and the Supreme Court stripping women's body autonomy, courtesy of Donald Trump. This is Joy Reid again. Also, Latino men who, despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. You all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters, who chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wife's sisters from here on in. Wow, I gotta say, that normally that's typically brought up a lot, David Duke. for some ridiculous reason, the only people giving him a platform are the media. But I had not heard that this year, so that's interesting from Joy Reid. Sonny Hoiston from The View, again, making me feel uncomfortable, but we're just reporting the news here. Hoiston said, what about a postmortem on the Republican Party? But they said they won't, but they're morally bankrupt. So the Republican Party morally bankrupt. Farrah Griffin said, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why? Sonny Hoiston said misogyny. It's misogyny. That's when Farrah Griffin said, no, it's on the border. The border crisis is on their doorstep. They were begging people to take care of them for years. And that's when Sonny Hoiston said misogyny and sexism. That's what that was. So not number one, not having learned their lesson. Number two, calling out over and over again people of color, calling out Latinos, the black population. If they think that's a winning strategy or even morally right, it's pretty questionable. What was this? Oh, AOC. So it's not just the media. AOC saying that Kamala's loss is to be blamed on sexism and racism. Okay. Again, showing they haven't learned their lesson. Here's an interesting one. The White House blamed the coronavirus pandemic for Harris losing. Interesting. Democrat strategist James Carville, who made a very strong prediction, and I haven't heard from Michael Moore either. He made a very strong prediction that Harris was going to win. But James Carville said it, came right out and said it. I know it's shocking, but I'm going to say Harris is going to win, that type of thing. He was on a podcast. He said, I just have to get over the fact that I'm 80 years old and I live in a country that has put a felonious bigot who has no idea of what the world is like, is the most secular person that you could imagine. And I don't know what percent of this defeat is because we didn't embrace a change message or we kept something too long. Was there some flaw in our strategy and our presentation? But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of people that voted for this. He went on talking about Ted Cruz winning, because that was another one where they said Ted Cruz is going to be out. It's just like the Iowa poll. They try to tell you this to discourage you. And everything people in Texas knew about Ted Cruz. And the thing that hurts so bad is Colin Allred is the very definition of a really fine person. So I'll have to reevaluate. I'm sure I'll come up with something to make me feel good again. But right now, today, it's hard. I'll be honest with you. And the hardest thing is that I look across the country and tens of millions of people fell for this, we'll say garbage. And it's depressing. But I will snap out of it. Rosie O'Donnell wants to end the racist electoral college. Taking the Twitter, how about we get rid of the electoral college? Anybody like that? Anyone? I'm not sure. I'm not so sure anymore. It's a popular vote. That's what we need to do. Who gets the most votes wins. One vote, one person. No racist math in the equation. We know that if we get rid of the electoral college, that means the focus year-round would be on coddling places like California, New York City, where the most votes would be. You would not have rural people represented when it comes to presidential policies. Moving along here, media's crisis point. This is coming from Hollywood Reporter. It's losing relevance and scorned in the Trump era. A reboot may be next. Former President Trump's decisive victory Tuesday will cause media outlets, particularly those that fashion themselves as nonpartisan, to rethink their strategy. Who's this nonpartisan? I like that they go on and quote Morning Joe. I think we have to acknowledge that Donald Trump knows our country better than we do. You're right. Now, Joe Concha, look at these last-minute waves coming in, said, this isn't a column, it's an obituary. He said, Donald Trump's improbable, historic, decisive victory on Tuesday showed us that the so-called free press is dead and buried. Outlets from CBS to NBC to ABC to CNN to MSNBC to the Washington Post and the New York Times and countless others like Politico and The Atlantic went all in on defeating Donald Trump with overwhelmingly negative and oftentimes patently dishonest coverage, and they failed miserably. Yes, if you look even during the debates with a fact check and things like that, I don't think they realized, I don't think they realized that those things turn off voters. When you can't get an answer during a debate without a moderator interjecting with fact checking and doing it in all interviews, I don't think they realize how it turns off voters and said, can I hear the candidate? But I'll continue. And think of the negative coverage. And really, I heard someone say this the other day, the billions of dollars in essentially in-kind donations to Kamala Harris with that coverage. So here she spent over $1 billion. They're saying, Politico anyway, reporting that she's $20 million in debt even after that $1 billion. And if that proves to be 100% accurate, it's a lot of money on top of the billions of free advertisement she got from the mainstream media. Weeks of their electioneering couldn't bring the votes to their side. Headlines alone reveal how they served as de facto surrogates for the Kamala Harris campaign. The Washington Post saying another night at the Garden, how Trump's rally echoed a Nazi rally in 1939. The New York Times, Harris and Democrats lose their reluctance to call Trump a fascist. Politico, meet the sleeper conservatives who could help fulfill Trump's promise to be a dictator on day one. The Atlantic, Trump is speaking like Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini. And when the election results actually arrived, the mainstream media reaction was unhinged, insane, and hilarious. Trump and J.D. Vance won, going away not only by sweeping every swing state, but by winning the popular vote. The first time since 2004. They thereby stripped the Democrats and the media of any chance to cry foul about the will of the people being superseded by the Electoral College. So without any controversy over the tally, and they're propping up the worst presidential candidate in history in a fruitless effort to get her over the finish line, these activists posing as journalists had nothing left but unfiltered and unhinged emotion. And it was delicious to watch. David Axelrod on CNN, for example, the former Obama strategist, is usually rational, but with his candidate losing so badly, he can only play the hatred card. Quote, let's be honest about this. Let's be blunt about it. There are appeals to racism in this campaign, and there's a racial bias in this country, and there's a sexism in this country. I don't have to read all these because we're nearly running out of time. But don't expect the media insanity to stop until January of 2029. Fortunately, fewer and fewer Americans are actually listening. And that's what Carol Markowitz said, that the media owes Trump an apology and an about-face in his second term. It's why, well, she said step number one, apologize. It's why Gallup found in October that a meager 31% of Americans trust the mass media to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly, which is an all-time low. Clearly, Americans aren't buying it. Number two, for the media recover is this: to cover Trump's second term in the White House, hire people who don't downright despise him. That's a good point. The third, and the third step, where is it here? Well, and just suggesting to be fair and informative about Trump's presidency in an unbiased manner. We don't imagine they will, but that would help rehabilitate their tattered, if you will, reputations. I like that. This was a headline I mentioned earlier from CNN. A buoyant Trump believes he has a mandate to hit the ground running as he reveals behind closed doors. Believes? He does. What will Democrats learn from Trump's reelection? Nothing. Again, as I mentioned, from Ryan P. Williams. The inability of Democrats to tack back to the popular center of American public opinion on matters such as race, sex, gender, immigration policy, and crime was their undoing, and will be in the next presidential fight with J.D. Vance in 2028. A contest which I expect to be a GOP blowout win, the likes of which hasn't been seen in American politics in nearly half of a century. Already predicting the 2028 election. Wow. Here's a good opinion piece at the New York Post editorial board. Kathy Hochul and Tish James say, never mind the voters, as Trump makes New York red. That was from their speech, that weird speech. And the further Democrats go down this path, the bloodier their losses will be. Hey, did you see that Trump is the first candidate in 40 years to sweep the key 2024 swing states? Isn't that amazing? 40 years, meaning Ronald Reagan's historic 1984 re-election landslide victory over Walter Mondale. All right, we are out of... New York Democrats are downplaying the loss of state Senate supermajority. Yes, they lost the state Senate supermajority. Definitely worth mentioning there. And they're bracing, like Gavin Newsom in California, having these special hearings so they can make their laws Trump-proof. Out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much to our guests from Twin Tiers Comic-Con, which is happening this weekend, Saturday and Sunday at the Arnett Event Center. What a week. What a fun week, huh? Thank you for joining us all along the ride. It's going to be just as much fun next week and continuing there on. So make sure you join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you on Veterans Day on Monday. So make sure that you join us. I look forward to it already. Have a great weekend.
I'm Marianne Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me, to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.